So hi, hello and welcome. I'm Oliver, Microbehunter here, and today this video is going to be a little bit different than the other videos of this channel because I would like to talk a little bit about the reasons of why many years ago I decided to leave research, to leave academia, to become a school teacher. And a decision that I absolutely don't regret. I also do not regret having studied microbiology. This situation is a little bit more complicated, and I would like to explain that to you. I also would like to give you a little bit of advice in case you are considering to study microbiology and or considering to become a teacher. And I would like to share you my experiences with you, and it could quite well be that you have diverging opinions. I just can tell you two things. First of all, it's what I experienced. And number two, if you do have diverging opinions, there is a comments section below. Please share with the community, share with the world what your experiences are and in what ways you agree or disagree with my opinion, and maybe also with the experiences that I had. So we have to turn back the time a little bit to explain a little bit of where I'm actually coming from. I've been now teaching biology for 26 years, and before that I have obtained a master's degree in microbiology. Specifically, I focused specifically on bacteriology, so my training was a little bit more into the classical direction of microbiology and not so much into molecular biology and DNA research. Even though this was also a very strong, even though I also have a strong foundation in that, this was not my area of, specifically my area of interest. Now, essentially, I've studied microbiology for over 6 years and obtained the degree. And before that, I wanted to become a medical doctor, and basically almost my whole life. And when I graduated from high school, I decided, no, that's actually not what I want. I'm not so much interested in curing diseases and treating diseases. I'm more interested in the scientific aspect of the whole thing. And medicine, becoming a doctor, simply was not scientific enough for me. And therefore, I very quickly abandoned this idea and decided to go into microbiology. Microscopes, of course, interested me a little bit, the visual aspect. This was simply a fascination that I had. And it was a good decision at that time. When I started to study, of course, I obtained also quite a bit of additional information. I want to share with you some of the opinions that I obtained from other people, because one of the first information sessions at the university at that time, I remember the professor walked in, a huge lecture hall, hundreds of prospective students who wanted to get more information were sitting there, and the professor walked in, and the first thing that he said, wow, there are too many students of you, 75% of you have to go, right? And we're going to make basically exams so difficult that the majority of you are not going to continue. It was not very motivating. But then he actually said something quite interesting. He said that basically, if you want to do something practical, if you want to do something applied, he said, you're at the wrong university. If you want to go into food microbiology, for example, there is a different university, because here at our university we are training scientists. That's our objective here. If you want to do something useful, if you want to do something practical, please go to the other university. And indeed, I could see that some of the students actually stood up and left. But for me, this was exactly the right thing, right? I wanted to do something scientific. It doesn't have to be useful, right? I just wanted to understand the world. So I felt actually quite reassured in my decision to study microbiology. Of course, I obtained also some other opinions, and this is actually also something that where the student council of my university and some older students had a slightly more reflective approach here. And they actually warned us and said the following: well, if you want to go into the field of medical microbiology, then study medicine. This was a very strong advice that they have given us. And I said, why that? And they said, study medicine first and then specialize in microbiology, because if you want to work in a hospital, the hospital is the area of the medical doctors, and you as a microbiologist will absolutely have no career opportunities there, because this is the world of the doctors. So it was it's a status question. This is, I'm not saying agree or disagree. This is simply the advice that was given to me or to us students by some from older students. Yeah, and this is if you want to go anything into the medical thing, study medicine first, and then do additional qualifications in microbiology. And indeed, it was quite interesting. I've seen that when I was already a little bit older, all of a sudden in the course, in the lab, there were some older students, and of course you talk with them, and then you all of a sudden discovered that one of them actually already had a finished medical degree. And he was kind of waiting for his how do you call this internship in the hospital. So there was a waiting period. So he applied for the hospital, and he did not get the position right away. So he had to wait. And during this waiting period of a couple of months, I mean, the guy just studied the whole subject major of microbiology, because he was so much into studying that he basically just studied the whole thing in passing, right? So just this kind of made it clear again that there is, especially in the medical field, if you only or just have microbiology, it's going to be probably a little bit difficult unless you're satisfied. Although that is something that I was told, unless you're satisfied of being a lab technician or simply a laboratory assistant, right? Even with a master's degree, right? It's very difficult otherwise. So this is a little bit the thing. And then, I said, okay, I do not want to go into the medical direction anyway. I just want to basically stay in the sciences. And so I still felt reassured. And then, of course, I kept on plugging away and studying away, and I really liked it. And then, of course, I was also working in the lab, in several labs, of course, doing my laboratory work for my master's thesis. And this is then where essentially a couple of other things started to appear, because what are you going to do later on, right? And here it's really important to understand that without a PhD in academia, you have basically, you have no future. So this is something that also became very clear very quickly. If you want to have any degree of independence in the field of the sciences, a PhD is the absolute minimum, and even then it's not guaranteed. And I've been working 1.5 years in the lab for my master's thesis, and this became very clear to me that adding another 5 to 6 years for a PhD program is not something that I wanted to do. I was kind of a little bit burned out already by that time, and I've said, lab work is all good and well, but honestly, 5-6 years more of the same is something simply that I could not motivate myself to do. And I also realized very quickly that finding a job later on is going to be kind of difficult. And for one reason, because it's something that actually nobody actually heard anyone say before, especially if you're very specialized in the field of research. Your job opportunities and prospects depend very much on the infrastructure that's available. I need to explain this. If I'm a trained microbiologist, what do I want to do without an equipped laboratory? You can't do anything. Right, so this means that if you're looking around for a job as a microbiologist, and I knew how to operate all sorts of fancy equipment, even gas chromatograph, highly expensive stuff. I knew how to do dilution. Forget it. All of the microbiology stuff. I got very good training. But what's the point of this training if you don't have a lab where you can actually use it? Right, and not many cities actually have research institutes for, in this case, microbiology. Right, so this is something that I actually did not realize at the beginning. But then I said, okay, well, maybe I can go and work in a chemical company. Yeah, sure, chemical company, but that's not a microbiology. Lab. So basically, the more specialized you are, the more limited your options are, because your job depends very much on an infrastructure. I mean, it's not only in the sciences like this. I mean, if you're, let's say you study a music instrument, and if you want to become a professional musician, you need an orchestra, right? You need some performance hall or something, right? So, and that's simply something that is not very, common in the sciences. So this is something that I realized, and so in the city where I'm in my home city, I actually could not find anything. I was kind of wondering what am I going to do now? Right? I studied something. I did not want to stay in the city where I studied. Wanted to return home to my home city, and this was a problem then, because there was simply nothing there. Where should I apply? Right? Who needs a microbiologist? Yeah, and that's was actually one of the problems. And yeah, of course, I talked to other students at that time in a similar situation, and they always kept on telling me, well, I mean, I'm certainly not going to change jobs because I've already studied something for several years, and of course, I also want to work in that area that I studied. Right, I'm not going to study, I don't know, let's say 5 years microbiology or molecular biology or molecular genetics and then do something completely different. I mean, why would I do that? Yeah, and it's 5 years wasted. Well, and I don't see it like that, but that was actually the opinion of many students at that time. But I very quickly realized this is, I mean, I gotta retrain maybe, or I gotta do something different. And as a matter of fact, during my stay at university as a student, I was also tutoring in a physics lab. So basically, I was assisting the professor to teach students in the physics lab because he needed someone to attend to the different groups who were always all doing the different physics experiments, and I really like doing that. And this is where I got the taste, a little bit of teaching. And then after I finished my master's degree, I decided, well, maybe I want to try out to go into teaching, but that's a problem because I did not have a teaching degree. And if you want to become a teacher, you got to have a teaching license and a teaching qualification. So what I did, therefore, and this was, I'm very grateful for this, I did actually get a teaching position as a biology teacher, but under the condition that while I'm teaching, that I also obtain a teaching qualification. So this was actually one of the most stressful times of my life, teaching full-time in a school, and then at the same time also going back to university to obtain a teaching qualification. It's an entirely different story, and it's a huge thing, but not something that I regret. Definitely not, but it was not an easy time in my life to kind of juggle both of these things. So what is basically now the reason why I decided to go from research to do a job change, and there were several reasons, and one of the reasons is of course job stability in the research area is not very high, and competition is absolutely crazy. Basically, they're producing a lot of in the life sciences was extremely popular, is still extremely popular. A lot of people graduate there, but there are of course most likely more graduates than there are actually positions specifically in that area. And I'm with my choice going more towards bacteriology in the master's degree. I think the limits, it was even more limiting because if I had focused more on molecular genetics or so, then at least I would have also had a chance maybe in some pharmaceutical companies, pharmaceutical laboratories. But this was kind of mainstream. But I decided I don't want to do the mainstream. I was more interested in the slightly more, how do you say, biological aspect with observing bacteria and microorganisms and a little bit of microscopy work and analytical chemistry and identification of microbes and so on. This was kind of the thing that I kind of liked more. But this kind of limited also my scope a little bit because in a research laboratory where they're doing, I don't know, genomic research or DNA research, of course, the focus is quite different. So essentially, I basically felt that I don't know if I want to go into that direction. I felt a little bit too much of a, I would say, strange if I say it, too much more of a biologist compared to a molecular geneticist, which is weird if I say it like that, because of course molecular genetics is also biology, but it wasn't down to earth biology as I kind of envisioned it, right? It's personal thing. Forget it. It's a little more complex than that. But in any case, the job prospects were low, and if you want to stay in the research, then this basically means that it's very unstable. And not only that, but also pretty badly paid, because why would anyone pay you something if there are a lot of people who are willing to do that for free, right? Because there's simply an oversupply. So concerning medium to long-term job stability, this is not something that I wanted. I also quickly found out that once you've got a PhD, then that's also not a guarantee, because then you need a postdoc. You're kind of traveling the world again for I don't know how many years until you've built yourself a name and until you've published, and then hopefully somewhere you're going to get a more stable position at some university. I did not want that either. I wanted to settle down a little bit, and I did not want this uncertainty of an academic career. So all of these factors, and the fact that I basically very quickly found out that I kind of like teaching. I always say I kind of like to hear myself talk, right? basically I said, well, actually I want to become a teacher. And this was for me one of the biggest, I would say, difficulties. It was a change in mindset. I'm now not going into research where I make important scientific discoveries, important under quotation marks. I very quickly realized that it's highly unrealistic to win the Nobel Prize, even though this is what every one of us wanted when we were young students. I very quickly realized that it ain't gonna happen. I wanted to go into teaching, and this is basically where I've been now for the last quarter of a century, and I really like it a lot. And I also have to say that I do not regret the indirect path that I've taken, because had I become a teacher right away from the beginning without a solid science background from research, I think this would also not have, something of my identity would have been missing as well. So I'm very happy the way that it worked out. Now I do want to kind of give a little bit also some concrete advice, because I'm not only teaching biology, but I'm also in careers counseling in the school where I teach. And normally I don't give advice, or I should not be giving advice, because there is always too much the danger that you're kind of influencing other people's opinions and so on. But still, I'm gonna do it anyway. There's a mistake that I made, and one thing that I did right, and I want to share this with you, and that's kind of my advice. The mistake that I made during my university studies was the following. The university has given us students a lot of flexibility as well to choose elective subjects. Quite a few credit hours, and in our case, the university has we could choose the electives from a list that was kind of a narrowed down list, and these were all kind of biology related or molecular biology related or microbiology related, and then there were certain credit hours where we could essentially attend any lessons at the university and would have gotten credit. So this was deliberately designed like this to open up and to gain more experiences from different fields. And they would have accepted anything. I could have taken art courses from university, honestly, learned a new language, no questions asked. And which subjects did I choose? Biochemistry. More of the same. This was my biggest mistake, right? I was so into the sciences and I loved sciences so much that I chose to kind of even dig in deeper instead of broadening up. And if you're already studying something specific like a science, a research science, then it's really important to broaden up. I mean, if you're studying something general like, I don't know, economics maybe or law, then I would say you got to narrow down and specialize somewhere, right? But if you're studying something specific already, I would highly recommend broaden up. And at that time, I also remember that I also heard is there were lots of good scientists out there who also made discoveries, and they patented their discoveries, but they had a real problem actually running a startup company because this was not part of their worldview. And so for those folks, the university actually offered courses, economics courses on how to run a business, because this was not part of their worldview. Yeah, so that is simply something that I would highly recommend to anyone to broaden the career aspect. This is to take subjects that are not related to a specific field of study, but don't do it chaotically and that you, I don't know, go all over the place, but maybe that you say, okay, I'm going to focus on, I don't know, let's say finance or economics or computing, okay, so then at least you can go into, or AI even, right? Then you can specialize in that area, and then later on you might be able to combine your main study with the other area that you essentially chose to follow. Even art. I mean, honestly, if you say, okay, I like art, and then you're going to go into art, then maybe scientific illustrations or whatever, it would be a possibility in the future as well. So just saying, this was actually my mistake. So I tried to compensate that mistake later on. I quickly realized that I've been a little bit too, how do you say, narrow. I compensated that mistake later on after I finished university, instead of doing a PhD, I decided to do a Master's of Business Administration, which was massively difficult for me. It was crazily difficult. It was simply not the way that I'm looking at the world. It was simply totally different world. So it really, how do you say, quite a bit of energy to understand this business world. Yeah, this was totally alien to me, and maybe that's actually the reason why I benefited so much from it, because it kind of showed me a completely different way of looking at the world. So it's not so much the actual material that I learned, which was so important, but actually it kind of changed around my worldview a little bit, or at least provided a different aspect of the world, my worldview. So that's the first thing. And the second thing that I want to pass on a little bit is because also on Reddit and on so many web forums you kind of hear, oh my gosh, what should I do? I can't find a job, I got fired, and now and biology, and what can you do as a biologist, microbiologist, whatever. And I'm saying, yeah, of course that's an issue, but having talked to so many other people as well, and this is going to be pretty tough now what I'm going to say, okay? So bear with me. Let's say to 50%, it's not the problem that there's no job out there. The other 50% is, and this is going to be the tough part, the unwillingness of people to retrain. Okay, if you say, okay, this is what I studied and I'm only willing to do that and nothing else, and I'm not willing to retrain, relearn, or learn new things, if this is your mindset, then you're limiting yourself. And I think changing this mindset is this difficult thing. I kind of forced myself doing that by getting this MBA degree, but you out there, it's so common. Oh my gosh, I cannot find a job in this. Well, come on, man. Then retrain. You are a researcher. You're a scientist. Don't see yourself only as I don't know, a research microbiologist, which basically only works in this specific narrow field. But see yourself a little bit broader. You've got a scientific understanding. You are able to understand scientific language and literature and so on. You can go into scientific communication. There's so many things that you can do. But why are you limiting yourself? Well, because that's what I studied. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Good. Great. But come on. Then there has to be a little bit of an incentive as well to see different perspectives and opening up a little bit, and also trying to maybe even retrain. Right? And this does not mean that everything that you've done up to that point was for nothing. Okay, this definitely doesn't mean that. In my case, for example, I would never have wanted to miss this solid scientific training that I got. So this is a little bit something that the advice that I can give you. Make sure that you broaden out up during your university studies, and also in your own self-perception. And I want to kind of close off with a little example here of a negative example that I've seen also with people that I studied with in the lab. When we were working there, we were, I don't know, a couple of times in a week, people came into the lab bringing along those medical devices and laboratory equipment catalogs and fine chemicals, and they were kind of trying to sell this stuff, right? They were working for a company for lab equipment, and they were kind of presenting the products. And if you wanted to buy something, then basically, here's the catalog, right? Even nowadays in school we have that. We've got book publishing companies that do that. They kind of bring their book publishing catalog, and then that's basically the books that you can buy. And I remember pretty much every time after a gentleman or a lady from this company came and dropped off the catalog, we in our lab, we used to discuss and debate that and says, wow, is this where we're going to end up? Basically running from lab to lab, selling products that I don't even identify with. I have not even designed them, and I'm supposed to sell other person's products. Some people, not I myself included, but I listened to the conversations was going on. It's almost like selling your soul to the devil almost, Oh my gosh, a person studied the sciences and now he or she is only selling, I don't know, chemicals and technical devices. Yeah, is this what we also have to do sometime? And I'm saying that's not bad, this job, right? But it was this, I would say, a little bit this attitude of being in this ivory tower. I am a scientist. I'm kind of, I know how this works. I feel proud of my work. And it's a little bit. I'm actually going to say this word. It's a little bit this arrogance. Okay, and that's what you got to do away with. Yeah, you cannot see yourself as being better as someone else, right? And I think that this also was maybe a little bit or somewhat of a limiting factor, where people then limit their own job opportunities and prospects because they just feel better, right? Yeah, why did I study microbiology? To only, under quotation marks, become a teacher? No, that's not an only thing, right? I think what I'm proud of is that basically many of my students will now become doctors. Okay, many of my students have become researchers in all areas of and I think that is one of the. Now I'm going to be a little bit arrogant. I think I claim now that this my success story is that my own students start to become better in certain areas than I was. And I think that's maybe the take-home message here. And that's why I feel that switching over from research to becoming a teacher was not a step down, but was actually it was an honor. Or is an honor. It sounds almost like I'm doing some kind of a goodbye speech. Definitely not. But the thing is almost like a retirement speech that I'm doing here. No, definitely not. But I just want to kind of say that you have to move away from this idea that one job is kind of better than another one. Yeah? And that's something that I kind of also had to struggle a little bit with. Is not because I look down on teachers, definitely not, but it's a little bit, wow, I've spent now 5 years, 6 years studying researching and doing microbiology and all this complicated stuff, and I will not be using this stuff anymore in the future, right? Because in school there are totally different rules, right? And the syllabus is quite different, and yeah, essentially I couldn't use nothing that I'll be honest with you. The stuff that I learned at university was at such a high level that I could not reuse anything for that in school, right? But still, I don't regret it. So yeah, just a couple of thoughts that basically I have, and and so basically here I am, a teacher making a couple of YouTube videos, and now just wanted to share that with you. And I think I'm really gonna call it a day now. Happy microbe hunting, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.